All right, I would like to call to order the Town of East Troy Planning Commission for the month of September. I'd like the record to show that all the commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner DeGrave, sorry, and Commissioner Zess is filling in. So how we operate is we are on a split meeting format. Tonight is our informational meeting where we have the applicant come up, let us know what they're looking for. We will ask questions. The commission will ask questions of the applicant back and forth. We'll let them sit down. The commission will have a short discussion amongst themselves, at which point I will open it up to the public where the public can either speak in favor of the proposal, against the proposal, and if necessary, the applicant can come up and have a rebuttal if necessary. That being said, that is not by ordinance. So if it is an issue that we feel we can act on tonight, we will act on it tonight. First item on the agenda is to review and approve the Planning Commission minutes from July 20th and August 2nd. Any issue with the minutes as presented in our
A couple
packet?
of items to consider. I believe the meeting was on July 19th, not June 20th. And I've actually gone through these corrections or suggestions with Jennifer already. I would like in the item conditional use for County J, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to suggest a deletion in the long paragraph, the full paragraph, the sentence that begins seasonal resident Terry Savage entered through the following sentence where you explain that the conditional use request was not included in adjacent property. I suggest that because just I thought you acted appropriately. I thought she was out of line in terms of the agenda. And so I'm just wondering if the commissioners would be, rather than a parliamentary process here, I don't see what value this adds to the minutes.
I guess my only concern is why strike it if it happened in the meeting? The minutes are about what happened in the meeting. That's my only concern. Obviously, we are recorded, we're online,
Right.
That's my concern is I don't know that that's necessary. It happened, how it happened, and I think it should remain in the minutes.
Is there consensus on that?
Does anybody else have any concern or reason to strike the sentences?
Well, if that's what's happened, I think it's appropriate to leave it in.
No, I have no concerns on the following page. The next to last page, though, under the motion section at the bottom of the page, I would like to have added for lack of a second. So Commissioner Wooker made a motion to table until September 6th. Motion failed for lack of a second.
I don't see any issue with that unless anybody else does.
I'd further like to suggest a parliamentary technicality that we delete the fact that we had discussion over a motion that did not have a second. So the sentence is, there was discussion related to a motion. We should have never had that discussion because we had no second. So I would ask that be deleted.
Again, I guess
part of the meeting.
Yeah, being that it's the minutes, that's what happened. Was it parliamentarily incorrect? Maybe. I would feel strongly about not striking that from the minutes.
I'd agree.
Okay. Lastly, on the last page, where the actual motion is and was approved on a 5-1 vote, to me, the sentence that includes the elements, the conditions 1 through 5, I'm just wondering if we could just strike the words on July 20th, 2023, because it's confusing that that's the day that we would only allow food and drink in the fenced-in area or carryouts only. Because it's really, that was meant for all times, not just for that one date.
I agree. That was confusing to me.
Fair. Unless anybody else has any issue with that.
So just to be clear, what are you suggesting?
Striking on July 20th, 2023. I think that was the motion you were making. And those are my only concerns on the July 19th minutes.
Would you like to make a motion to approve with your, with the changes accepted and rejected?
I would like to make that motion.
So moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is conditional use at,
The August, the next minutes.
my apologies. I thought we were approving both minutes.
So the August 2nd date, that was the meeting date. So the next paragraph, I think we need to change the February 15th, 2023 at 6:30 to August 16th, if necessary. I'd suggest that change.
I'm sorry, if you can get me up to speed.
Second paragraph, sentence, commissioners' viewing and decision-making will be on February 15th, 2023. I think the actual date would be August 16th.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay.
Number one, the date is July 19th, 2023, not July 20th.
Right.
Under the lot line adjustment, I believe I actually made the motion to deny the lot line adjusted as requested, not to approve it. Which is the last sentence in number 2. And that's just because the guy didn't come.
Certainly. Right.
Under the next item, third sentence, the 5 acre from A3 to B3, that would be B4 instead of B3. And the last page, the last page, the variance request, just on a technicality, if we could add a singular stairway for safer access for her elderly family members, adding elderly, and then the existing stairway currently is within the shoreline setback. And those are the only corrections or suggestions I have for the August 2nd minutes. I'd make a motion to approve those changes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. You got all those notes, Jim? All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is conditional use. W1602 County Road J, parcel PA 181800001 Cash Bar Enterprises. This obviously is what we passed last time. It came back to us from the board because they felt we did not, I guess I'm paraphrasing, but they felt that we did not give the public enough input. I reached out to the applicant and said, okay, he had come back a couple of times, said, you know, I'd be willing to move the stage over here so it projects over there. And so what I said is, okay, it's coming back to us and we're going to open it up to public comment, all the above, basically starting over. Please get me your final version. I gave him until, he did not feel like he could do that by this meeting. So I gave him until September 20th to be on the agenda for the next meeting. So I would like to table agenda item number 2 for tonight. and we can act on it at October's meeting.
Sorry, you said September 20th, so we table until
We would table it until October's meeting.
October's meeting.
Correct. So September 20th is when is the time that everybody has to get us all their information.
I see.
That's the deadline. That's the deadline for October's meeting. I gave him the deadline till October's meeting.
Okay, so we might expect some new information.
If it's on the agenda for next month, we will have the final
Plan.
set of, documents. This is it. And it'll be, noticed appropriately or not appropriately, noticed as it would be for any plan commission agenda item. So I would like to table item number 2 and move on to item number 3. Agenda item number 3 is a rezone.
Do we need to vote on that? or-
No.
Okay.
Agenda item number 3 is a rezone N8684 Stringers Bridge Road, East Troy, parcel PET 1800019, Stephen and Anna Russo. If you could let us know what you're looking for, we would appreciate
Hi,
it.
Steve. Nice to meet you guys. We bought the property, I think last September or October. And in the course of doing a survey on the property, and we want to build a home there, they said, well, it's probably a good idea to get a new wetland delineation because the old one, I think there's a map that was from 95 or 96 or 92, whatever it was. It was very old and there wasn't a ton of detail on it. So we got a wetland delineation from Sewer Pack. We got new surveys from Lynch when we bought the property, and that was included on there. We're not making any changes to anything, but the county, when we're applying for a building permit, says they would like to use the new updated wetland map, the wetland delineation, into their system. So then we went on their guidelines, but supposedly we need town approval for the wetland. So we're not trying to change anything, but I guess there's something like a half acre or something changed from wetland to not wetland in the old to the new. And I think that's the only change. So it's just a formality from my perspective where we're just building a one single family house. So that was basically why they told us to go from there to here.
So I guess my question, and I feel like I'm pretty good with these.
Yeah.
Where is the
It seemed like it moved maybe 3 or 4 feet closer to the lake, but not everywhere. So there's a driveway there. Well, I don't know if you can see it on there, but it didn't move much. If you look at the outline of the old one and the new one, it's maybe a couple of feet difference here and there, but it's a long property. So, 3 or 4 feet or 5 feet or whatever it is, dragged along 800 or 1,000 feet just adds up to a fair amount of change. But it's not any closer. I don't think it's really a real significant change.
Understood.
Where the current house is exactly where the old houses already were on there. So it's not impinging. I think the house is, 150, 175 feet from the water and at least 50, 60, 70 feet from the wetland. So it's not close from what I've been told.
Sure. I guess just I couldn't quite figure out from the old to the new.
It's not easy with the drawing. Like the line isn't perfect there, but it wasn't a real appreciable.
And so your application is asking for what changed from C4 or what isn't C4 anymore to be A3?
Well, actually, no, is it A3? There's on the survey itself, I think they have maybe a C2. I don't know the numbers of what the properties, but on the survey, I believe there's a breakdown of like the C here. C1 is here. And then there's C2. Oh, so maybe it's C1 to C2.
And where's is this road the edge of the delineation,
road
or?
is, so I think they're calling it this upland area. If you look where it says gravel drive, this upland area, I think is the C, so I'm sorry, I guess wetland is C1.
Wetland is C4.
You have a lot of C4.
Yeah, I don't see any
Okay.
C4 listed on your
So the
survey.
rest
Correct.
is all C4, I think, so maybe they have it wrong, and then maybe this is C4. The wetland, see where it says wetland area here? That's the, I don't know the terminology, but the wetland area is 15.669. And then the topland area is,
3 point,
no, sorry, upland area, upland area is 9.25.
sure.
So the two of those are our entire property. So I don't know what, the number, like the C, the difference.
Looks like you're zone C1 now for 15.6 acres, C2 for 9.2 acres, which comes out to your total property 24.9.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't see any C4 on here.
Is that what our property is zoned?
No, you're zone C1 and C2,
Okay, so then,
At least according to.
your
to
latest
Lynch.
survey.
Yeah.
okay, so I guess comparing it to the old survey, does that say the same C1 and C2?
Yeah, it doesn't say.
I don't know.
I'll add to my confusion on this, and I took the time to talk to Darren at the
Right.
county, and historically, the A3 is 9.260 acres.
Okay,
Then the wetlands go to the north of approximately that gravel road, which
Right.
fades out as we go to the east. On the County One view, all of that other land is currently C4.
okay,
On this plat, we have C1s, C2s. But I think your major concern is what we see as 9.26 acres of A3.
I mean, the reason why we're here is because of Darren. He basically said, he said, well, we're not going to hold up your permit. He's like, you're not doing anything wrong, but as a county, we want this new wetland delineation in there. We give CAD/CAM files or whatever files they use, but I don't.
Do you have any knowledge of why it's A3?
I have zero knowledge of anything about zoning.
Okay, because that's agriculture.
Well-
So what are you saying is A3, Bill?
A3 is the property currently on the one view is the property, they have that gravel road.
Mm-hmm.
To the south of that is, and that's where he's building.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's probably grades up.
It does, and there is actually, so it grades up, and then on the top of it, behind ours is a bunch of acres of stuff that looks like it was farmland at one point.
Okay.
Because that's the part of Stringer's Bridge that goes around the curve that
Yep.
goes up.
Yep.
So we have a little bit of property, at least maybe 5 acres up there that isn't anything, but I think previously it was agricultural. I was told historically.
Okay.
So that is less than 10 acres, so there's one buildable
Yeah.
lot there, which you've showed us the house. Personally, I like this looks like a C4 to me, especially when we read the letter from the Southeast Regional.
Well, Sewerback is who delineates, obviously,
and they-
wetland, C4.
Yes, and they speak to the value of this as a scenic natural area flowing into Swan Lake. Just out of curiosity, they mentioned in their survey letter how you would consider selling it to the Nature Conservancy.
Their report was tough to get through. It was like 100 pages or
Yeah.
something. And I asked a guy to come out afterwards because he was going to, so it's like what we could do with the property. There's a lot of invasive stuff in there. It's really kind of a mess right now.
Yeah.
And I was trying to ask them, but I haven't heard back from them in terms of things. And I know, our property basically abuts, I think the Girl Scouts are on the other side of Stringer's Bridge.
Yeah.
So it's a nice corridor. But yeah, they've talked about easements, they've talked about this, they've talked about that. I mean, it's just,
But they haven't done anything with
no
that.
one's-
at this point.
they did the report and that's all I've heard.
Yep.
So,
But what Darren also said to me that shone a light was, he said, they do aerial photography of this, and they kind of spitball what's wet, what's dry, where the lines are drawn. But then you have the precision of somebody coming in like this and doing a field inspection.
yeah,
They're
just
now
Sewer
drawing
Pack
very
came, they came,
precise
Sewer
stuff.
Pack came, they
Oh, yeah.
marked the
Mhm.
orange flags, and then the survey company,
Yep.
So it was very nice.
My only concern is on your petition for amending the Walworth County zoning and shoreline. You correctly say present zoning is A3C4, which is clearly what shows on the CAD site. And then you're requesting A3, but as I understand it, to correct the wetland on the property per the wetland delineation of the report from June 2022 by Southeast Regional Management District.
But Bill, my concern is this map that's in front of us to act on
Yep.
says C2 and C1.
It does.
So,
From my understanding, that is our survey map, which isn't the one I think that will go in the county system. I think that's I don't think from my understanding and Darren's thing, and what we sent them was the CAD file that doesn't have per se, from my understanding, the zoning stuff. All it has is the actual GPS locations of the delineation. So I can certainly correct it on the survey per se, but I don't think, because he already has the file and he said everything's fine. But I should probably talk to Lynch, and I talk to them all the time with the house stuff. So to update the survey to correct it to say, so the upland area should be A3 and the other one should be C4 for the wetland.
well, go ahead.
Could be.
So it's C4 and A3 now. It sounds like, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, it sounds like adjust the wetland delineation and then the zoning to match. But that's not what's on here. So if that's what's needed, I think we need a different survey.
And that's, so again, we operate on a split meeting
Right.
format. I don't think anybody here, and I don't want to speak for anyone,
Sure.
is necessarily, it's Sewer Pack is just adjusting
Yeah.
as they do. They're the authority. But what's in front of us does not necessarily reflect
Okay.
reality. So I think if you came, in between now and 2 weeks from now, if this got corrected by Lynch, whether it's C2 or A3 existing, whatever that delineation changes, I want it to stay. Let's just say the existing is C2. I want whatever changes to stay C2, and whatever changes, obviously, to say C4. But he's got it as C1, and C1 is not wetland.
So what should I tell them to change to? Because I don't actually know.
It should be.
It should be C4 and A3, you're saying.
The
Well,
county could clarify what they're asking of you, and I think you could refer your surveyor to the county.
This to me, it's more of an I dotting and T crossing.
Yep.
And the I's aren't dotted and T's aren't crossed in this. Lynch should know better. Lynch should
Okay.
know what the existing zoning of the upland is. And then lowland is C4. It just, maybe not in other municipalities. In Walworth County, which is our zoning, C4 is wetland. And that's what that needs to be.
Okay.
So again, I don't think anybody here is like,
No,
absolutely not. This needs to be cleaned up,
Okay.
got back to us, and then we can act on it on our decision-making meeting in 2 weeks.
So basically, the only thing that needs to change on that survey, just to be clear, is the C1 goes to C4, and then the other C2 goes to A3.
If that's what whatever the existing zoning is, we want that to stay, whatever it is. If it's A3, it should stay A3. He calls it out as C2, which makes sense to me.
It does make sense.
If it is C2,
So what
it
if
should
that's-
stay C2.
So what if that's right?
Well, C2 is right. C1 100% is not.
So C,
100% is not.
so C2 south of the gravel road makes sense. because
Absolutely makes
That is a upland reserve conservation district
And
Everything-
5 acres.
and 5
minimum.
acres. And everything on the other.
A3 is
direction-
35 acres.
C4.
So that's why A3 doesn't necessarily make sense to me.
Substandard A3 lot.
And it could be, it could be. I don't want to, I'm not telling you that we're trying to do a zoning change because you're not.
Right.
Whatever the upland is, should stay. Whatever the lowland is C4.
So who actually knows that?
Lynch should know that.
But Darren doesn't know that?
Darren does know that.
Because he says
Lynch-
Because he says A3.
If
He
this were to
was
go,
like-
to-
If it's A3, then it's A3.
if this were to go to the county as is, they don't think they could act on it because it's invalid.
And again, I don't feel like we can act on it because C1 is not correct
So,
as presented to us.
so because you spoke to Darren,
I did.
right? And he said,
He said there's some ambiguity in this and that A3 may have been the original designation based on an aerial view and best guesses spitballing what it was. He said probably should be a C2 now that we know what we know, and that's how Lynch saw it too. But that's not our call here. We got-
Correct. And he's not asking for a rezone. So if it's
Correct.
currently A3 on the upland,
Right.
it needs to be on this map as A3 on the upland, C4 on the
so
wetland.
just who is the actual authority?
It's
for
it's
saying-
already zoned that way. Nobody needs to make
So,
a
but
call
where
on
do
it.
where do you find where it's written in that zone? Like I clicked that it's zoned A3.
It's county zoning.
So the county, it's not, so Lynch, so when I call Lynch, I mean, I say, well, they say it's not zoned right. And then they should call the county, or I should call Darren at the county? again?
Lynch should take care of this for you.
Okay,
Lynch could watch
This is a Lynch problem as far as I'm concerned.
okay.
If you look at the zoning map behind you to see where the A3 is. And then right above it, I can't quite read what that is. What is that right there?
A3 is.
So if you move to your right,
Yeah.
what is that?
Well, this is our property right here, which says C4 and A3.
There it is. That's
So-
the start.
And that's what your map, that's existing zoning right there. That's what your map needs to reflect.
Okay.
This is a map from
Is
the
there-
county.
Is there a benefit for him to
Okay.
seek a rezone?
It's not for us to tell them that.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
mean, there's substandard zoning all over the county.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
so I will call Lynch tomorrow and tell them that they should look up again with the county from the map that should probably be C4 and that should probably be A3. And then I will get you guys back. This time, all you'd need would be this new survey. Do I still have to submit 8 copies of everything else again? Or is it just the survey again?
Survey is all I need.
Are you okay with receiving that for email, or do you want a physical copy?
I can drop it off. I'm up here. It's not a problem.
However you want to get it to us.
Because if you just email me that, I can send it to everyone in color, and you wouldn't have to wait for it, and it would shorten up the time for
That'd be fantastic.
I appreciate it. I'm sorry for the confusion. I don't know
No,
much
no problem.
about this stuff.
Yep,
I
we're good.
appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you. Any other discussion amongst commissioners? At this time, I would still actually, even though it's not necessarily correct, I would open it up to the audience. Would anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this proposal? Would anybody like to speak against the proposal? Go ahead. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. John Becker, I'm at W 1958 Pastime Lane, East Troy. I'm on the Lakeview Management Board, and we are very concerned about wetlands, as you can imagine, since this is a sensitive area. And so we watch these things very closely. And from the information that I've gotten from the packet, I can't tell where the line is. And I think it's important to define it one way or another, exactly where the wetland starts and stops and where the other property takes over, so you can understand exactly what's going on, because it becomes a very serious problem over time. And some of the properties on the lake, you have the lake frontage being C4, And that blocks a lot of activity. And it's very important to keep it that way because it's for a reason. It's to keep the lake as pristine as you can. Another thing is the other portion of the property is, I guess, listed at A3. This is not A3 type property based on the definition and based on other property along Stringers Bridge Road. I have property on Stringers Bridge Road, 35 acres. Good portion is A3, soybeans on it now, usually corner soybeans. The rest of it is upland and it's C2. And that is typical of almost all the property along there. It's either A1, A3, or C2. And C2 is very appropriate for putting a house or anything like that. A3 is typical for farmland that could eventually be subdivided or something like that. But another thing, as far as the town is concerned, A3 essentially zero taxes, very close to zero taxes. C2 is taxed much higher. So people will gravitate to A3 if they can get away with it, for reduced taxes. And C2 would be more appropriate, higher taxes, not drastic, but they are higher. So,
But so if it's currently A3, we're not here to tell him he should rezone his land. It's non-conforming A3, I agree with you. Everything you're saying is correct. To your first point, sewer pack obviously is the delineation. I agree, obviously that was our discussion, that this map does not delineate properly.
Yeah.
Now, he's not coming to us, Lynch is not coming to us saying, hey, I want to, consume more C4. Sewer pack, who is the authority on the C4 wetland delineation, is who did that for him.
Yeah.
I think there was just,
yeah, and like I say,
we need to tighten it up.
I'm not for or
Absolutely.
against, I just want to be correct. I do think it's important to put the C2 in place here because I think it's a stroke of a pen, but it will set it for the future rather than have an A3, which this does not make sense at all. And because if I looked at my land, I would say, well, my C2 really should be A3. If his is A3, why shouldn't mine be A3 and my taxes will go down? I don't want to do that. I wouldn't attempt to do that, but let's do it right. Let's get it correct. Now's the opportunity, zero penalty to do it.
But it's currently zoned A3, and again, we're not here to tell him he should rezone his property. The county, again, like I said, it's non-conforming A3.
I'm not against, I'm for it. Just do it
Sure.
right, And
I appreciate it. I mean, on the survey, I will try to get them to better delineate where the wetland is. I mean, so it is, I know it is on the county CAD/CAM map. It doesn't show well on there. And then, my thinking is that even this whole process is confusing to me. So I'm thinking I will probably just keep it at A3. It doesn't matter to me whether it changes, but it seems like that's going to be an even more difficult process to change.
That is correct, because that's a rezone.
That's a rezone. So my thinking is in the future, I agree with you. I would say part of the property, like there's about 5 acres behind it that is high up that I think used to be farmland. But where we are in that, there's like a swale that goes down maybe 40 feet, that area is probably.
Okay.
Well, my property which is north of you, is 35 acres, and I think 20 acres would be C2, and I have a hole in the center of it, a big pasture. I can't make that A3, it has to be C2, so that's the whole thing.
Thank you for your comments. Would anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor or against the proposal? Okay. Again, I think we'll come back in 2 weeks, have better information and make a decision. All right, next item on the agenda is any other business amongst commissioners or public comment? Then I would make a motion to adjourn, or I apologize.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.